Zoho training for salespeople. You will go to the internet, and in the bar above you'll do zoho.com, and then you will go to log in, and you will put in your email address, and the password that you set up when you got your email to set up your Zoho account. Then it will bring you to this screen, and you need to click on CRM. So this is your dashboard, which we'll go over in advanced training, so you won't learn about that right now. But prior to entering anything inside Zoho, so anybody you want to call on, anybody that you want to see if they already belong to another customer, because we have no territories, we're all just relationship based, so you always have to check in Zoho prior to making any calls to potential customers. So up here in this main header line, there is this magnifying glass that you will click on, and then you will type in the name of a company that you would like to work on. I usually suggest to just put in part of the name of the customer, because if you spell it with a space or another person doesn't spell it with a space, and for some reason it doesn't seem to be working. So prior to you entering any leads into Zoho, you have to check to make sure that nobody else has that lead already in the system. And you do that by this bar up here with the magnifying glass. The other thing that I didn't mention earlier was that you have to be in Chrome in order for Zoho to work. Do not use Internet Explorer. So once you click on the magnifying glass, then you will type in part of the name of the company. And I suggest to just use part of the name of the company, because you could be spelling it with a dash or not, or they could say, you know, suburban trim and then the and instead of the word and. So it's just better to just use partial of the name of the company, so that you can go through and look to see if they're already in there. So they break it out into suspects, accounts, and contacts. So if it's a suspect, that means they haven't purchased from us before, and they are just somebody that we're looking to try to give a quote to. If they're an account, they could either be somebody that already purchased from us, or we have already quoted them. So basically, suspect, we have not quoted yet. They move into account once they get quoted as an account prospect, and then when they have closed a deal with us, they're an account client. Then we also have contacts down here as well. So you just want to look through the whole thing to make sure the person that you want to call on is not in there. Once you have checked to make sure that they're not in there, then you can just X out of here and you can add them. So if I want to add them, I'm going to click on suspects, and then I'm going to click on plus. So it doesn't matter whether they're a suspect or an account or a contact when you're searching. If you click up here to search, it searches for them anywhere in the whole entire system. But because this is a new suspect that I'm trying to go after to get a quote for, I'm going to click on suspects, then I'm going to click on plus, because I want to add them as a new suspect. And then I need to complete all of the areas that have the red under there. It will not let me save unless I have something in every one of the amounts, or any one of the
lines.
Yeah, like lines that have the red under. If you have any of the other information, it is better to put all the information in there. So if you know their title, their email address, their mobile number, please put in as much information as you actually know. But the underlined words with red are mandatory. So you're going to put in the suspect source. So that means, where did you get this suspect from? Was it an advertisement that we put out in, a magazine? Did you cold call them on the phone? Did you cold call them in person? CoStar we don't use anymore. Was it a customer referral? A customer's vendor? We sometimes do a Daily Herald makeover. Was it an employee referral? An existing customer? Yeah, some of these are old, so that I'll have to get rid of those later. But like a help moving office lead, whether they just came from the internet, was it a networking event that you went to? Was it a power partner? Was it from the sign outside? Was it from the vertical website? Were they a walk-in? And Wendover is also a lead list that we don't purchase anymore. So we're just going to say that this person was a walk-in. Then the suspect status. What that means is, when are you going to call them? So are you going to call them 1 day from now, a week from now, a month from now, 3 months from now? Why that's important is all suspects have to be contacted every 14 days unless the suspect has told you, hey, do not contact me for a month or 3 months or anything. In order for that suspect to still stay yours, you have to be in contact with them, whether sending an email, a phone call, whatever, every 14 days. Now, if you've been contacting them and then all of a sudden now you got an appointment, then you're going to come in here and change their status to appointment. So we're just going to say that I'm going to contact them again in 1 week. So then I need to put the company name in here. And at this point, they shouldn't be in here already. Then you're going to put their name in there. And if you do have their email address, that's great. But a lot of times in the beginning, you're just making cold calls, so you don't have it yet. Then you will put their phone number in there. I forgot the dash. Then you have to put their address. For some reason, it just auto-filled this information in, which is not correct. So I do not know why I did that. We're gonna how I did that. So we have to take that off. Okay, so I filled out every one of them that was in red. Some other information, if you can get, is like when's their lease expiration. Mobile number is very important. And email is very, very important, because we send out a newsletter every month that if the email address is in here, then you're staying in contact with them on a monthly basis for our newsletter. So then you just hit save when you're done adding the new one. So now that I have them entered in there, I can just go on to the next ones I want to enter, or and when you're in there, there's these different views that you can do up here. So if you click on this, you can go, to my suspects, which would be yours, but this is my view right now. But like it recently created suspects. There's all different today ones that you've done, there's all different kinds of views that you can do, but most of the time you're just going to be in my suspects. So now if I want to go back and find that one that I was just working on, I'm going to go back up here and try to find, okay, so here's my suspect. So I'm going to go back in there because now I've been making phone calls to them. It's very important to put all of your notes and activities that you're doing with this suspect. So as you scroll down, then you can see that there's this note section. So anytime that you've had a call with them or anything like that, you can just say, called John, he said to send him info. And then you can hit save. So then the notes in there, it's recorded that you have been staying in contact, because that's very important to make sure that you can prove that you've been staying in contact with this suspect, because if somebody else gets the same lead from one of their power partners, they could be like, hey, you haven't done anything with these people in 3 months, so it could end up not being yours anymore if you don't keep track of that. Then you have this area for activities. So you want to make sure that you set up reminders for a couple reasons. First of all, for yourself, that you need to send them something. And if you need to send them something, it will remind you if you put in here. So I want to click on new task, send info, what date I want to get it done, what date it's due by, if there's a priority. You also want to set up the reminder. So if you see I just clicked on reminder, if you don't click on reminder, it's just going to show up in your task list, but it won't send you a reminder. So if I want to have a reminder, you need to put that in there, and it's going to alert me via email. So then I'm going to click done and save, and now I have an open activity that I need to do that's in here. The other thing that you want to make sure is when you do get an appointment with them, then you want to add that as a new event, so that then you can keep track of all the appointments that you've gone on. So new event, appointment, maybe the location, if it's at their place or our place. So if it's at their place, it'll automatically pull it up as soon as you click on it, and if not, you can just type in ROI, so that then we know that they actually came here for a tour, because we have a bigger close ratio when they come here for a tour. So you just put the date that you're going to have the appointment and hit save. So that's also in there as well. Now if you're just making phone calls, you can just say, oh, I want to do a new call. I'm calling them right now, so I'm just going to put a description in. I'm just going to put a fake description in for right now of what we talked about, so that they know that it's done. It's a completed call. You can either set up that you want to call them later for a future call, or if you've already called them and you just want to keep track of what you said, then you will just do completed call. Hit save. Oh, I left the subject empty, so let's just talk about new office.
Current call, is that meaning that you're making the call on the website, and scheduled call is a future call?
That's a good question. Yeah, I guess if it's a scheduled call, that would be, towards the future. Current call, this means, you know what? I think we would only use completed call or scheduled call, because current call would be as if you had the phone. You could set up your phone actually attached to Zoho. Okay. So it would be like actually recording the time that you were on the phone call with the person.
Oh, wow.
So, so we don't have that set up right now. So we would just do it as a completed call if we were already done, or we would do it as a scheduled call if I want to call like 2 days from now, and then it would send me a reminder.
Okay.
But you have to remember that it doesn't automatically remind you. You always have to go to the reminder and set up when you want to have the reminder. So if I want to have the reminder 5 minutes before the scheduled call, It's because I want to call them on Monday, and then I can hit save. So that would be one way of doing it. But now let's say I'm actually making the call right now. So we're talking right now about setting up appointment. And put in my notes of my description, but it's already a completed call. You don't have to worry about the call duration or anything like that, just the notes. And then you'll hit save, and that'll show up as a closed activity. So we will have your Office 365 email linked to Zoho, so that as long as you have the email address up here, that's another reason why it's important to have an email address. The one is to have the campaigns go out automatically. The other one is that if you have the email address in here and you send an email from your phone or from the website of 365 or from your desktop, Zoho will automatically look to see if that email address is in Zoho, and if it is, then it will record that also as information that you've talked to the customer about, and the email will show up right here in this section. Also, if you have the emails, like I said, then every time a campaign went out, and that's the campaign newsletters that we send out once a month, will show up in here. And then it also tracks their visits to the website. So it captures their IP address, and when it captures their IP address, then the visits show up here, and it will actually show you what page they went to. So I will show you an example of that in a moment. So now I will show you what it looks like once you've had their email address up in there. Then it will show what newsletter they received. So that shows up right here. Then also having their email address in there with the IP address also shows every time that they've viewed our website. So it shows that this person's gone on our website 3 different days, all the minutes that they've spent on our website, the number of pages that they looked at for our website. So it's really good information to have, because now you know where they're concentrating their time. And this is actually looks like a good lead, because they really have spent a lot of time. If you can get somebody to spend 12 minutes on your website, it's actually a very long time. Most people spend like a minute. So now the other thing that you can do from the view section, if you are in My Suspects, you can track by different sorting mechanisms over here. So if you go activities, I want to see all the activities, all the people that don't have any open activities. So then you know, oh, I better get a hold of them, or I better schedule an activity, or any of your activities that are overdue, any activities that are due today. So it just gives you different ways to sort, to be more organized, so you know who you haven't contacted in a while. Then it has another one for an email status. So if you sent emails out, then you can sort it by people who have opened your emails, people who haven't opened your emails, bounce back emails. A lot of this is very helpful when we send out campaigns, if we have like old email addresses or something like that. The next thing would be for notes. Like if you haven't put any notes in the last 2 weeks or 2 days, or, you know, because like I said before, you have to have notes in there every 14 days if they haven't told you to not call for a month or 2, which would change the suspect status. So this is really good way of sorting. So now we're going to pretend that we've already had the appointment with this customer, and we're going to be sending them a quote. So once we've sent them a quote, they're no longer a suspect, they become a prospect. And in order to switch them from a suspect to a prospect, you have to come into the suspect section, pull them up, and then once you're in there, you're going to click on this button that says send quote. It doesn't really send a quote, it just performs the function of making them converting them from a suspect to a prospect. So I'm going to click send quote. And when it does that, it automatically, they're no longer in a suspect anymore. Now they're going to be in accounts. And it automatically set up a project, which you need to go in and put the rest of the information for that project. So, and for some reason, every time we do this now, it says the suspect you're trying to access has already been converted, because it says you're trying to look it up in a suspect, which I don't know why it's doing that. It seems weird to me. But now we're going to go into projects. So if you look up here, and I know there's two different projects, which seems weird, so I'm going to try to figure out how to change that, but it's not the first project, it's the project that's after suspects. So basically, if you think about it, they become a suspect, then an account, and accounts have contacts. So accounts are companies, contacts are the people that work for the company. So basically they're suspects, then they turn into accounts and contacts, and you have projects for them because you sent them a quote. So now I'm going to come into my projects and try to find, so you can either go in there one of two ways. You can go into projects and click on the project that way, or you could look it up in the tab up here. Because I'm the administrator, I have access to everybody's, so there's a lot of projects in there. If they were just your projects, they're going to show up that they're just your projects, so then you would see them better. So now if you see Suburban Sewer changed to an account, and if you look at the contacts, John Bates now is the contact name for the company Suburban Sewer. I'm the contact owner, you'd be the contact owner in this situation. Then it also set up this project. Obviously there's $0 and it doesn't have the proper information in here because we haven't done it yet, but it at least sets up the project for you, transferring over the account name. So one of the things you also have to look at, if you see that any of these are blue, means that you can go somewhere else from them. It's a link to send you somewhere else. Even though I'm in projects right here, I can go to projects, accounts, or contacts. You would think sometimes people make the mistake, if you think you can click anywhere on this line and get to the project, that's not true. If I click over here, because I'm under project name, it's going to take me to the project. If I click over here under account name, it's going to take me to the account. If I click over here under the contact name, it's going to take me to the contact. So in this scenario, I'm trying to update the project. So I will click on the project name. And at first, it is going to make the project name and the customer name be the same thing. And you do not want to leave it like that. So in order to edit, you just click the edit button up here. And so for project name, you just want to do what you're working on, whether it's chairs, workstations, entire office, break room, conference room, anything like that. We'll just say that we're selling this person some chairs for right now for this quote. So we're quoting them $10,000 worth of chairs. So you just put the dollar amount of the quote in here. So again, just like what I showed you before with the suspects, anything that has a red line under it are mandatory fields, and it will not let you save unless you fill out the mandatory fields. So I'm going to put the amount of the quote, and then for A, B's, and C's, what that means is I'm trying to check the not the accuracy, but the percentage that we're going to get the job. So an A means you know that it's our job. They pretty much gave you a verbal, or you feel really good about that it's our job, and you know what month it's going to close. So in order for a project to be an A, you have to know that it's, pretty sure our project, 90%, 80% sure that it's our project, and you know the month that it's going to close. It's a B if it's one of two different things. So I'm really sure we're going to get the job. They told us, it's ours, but we have no idea when it's going to close. It's going to close in December, January, February, we're not sure. That would be a B. The other way that something's a B is when it's going to close. It's going to close in December. or January or whatever month it is, but you're not exactly sure if we're going to get the job. You're like pretty sure, but you're not sure. And so basically it's going to be ours if it closes in the month. And if it doesn't close in the month, they probably went with somebody else. A C are 50-50 shots. They're really, you know, you don't have that great of a relationship with them. We're up against a lot of competition. You know, there's many different ways that a C is really just like pretty much a long shot that we're going to get it. So you're going to mark whether it's an A, B, or C. I'm going to put this one as a B. And the stage, I'm going to change to quoted. The stages are different depending on what stage of the product it is. So if I've already quoted them, it'll be in quote. If I've already done a revision, so now I've done a quote, now they've come back, oh, I want to make some changes, so then it would be revisions. If they've already picked finishes, and then we would click finishes. Pretty much if they've done everything so far and they're just in negotiating review with their bosses or boards or anything like that, that would be that stage. Then you have waiting for final info to close. So meaning like it's our job. They've, you know, maybe either signed on it or they're about to sign on it. But let's say they've signed on it and they still owe you a tack board fabric. They haven't decided what tack board, you know, color they want. Then you would click on that. And that's really just showing me how far along it is in the stage. So like for instance, if you have something marked as an A, but you're only at the quoted, I'm pretty sure it's not an A for that month because you haven't picked finishes yet. There's still so much, you know, that needs to be done. So we'll just say that this job is just quoted because I just quoted it for the first time. And then the closing date, the only thing I care about is the month. It makes you put the day in there as well, but I don't care what day you put in there. So I'm going to say this is going to close in January, and you can put it any day you want in January because I just go off the month. So once you get all that information in there, then you just click save. And that shows you that your project's in there. And this is what I use basically as your funnel. This is your quoted funnel. I use it to do projections to see how well the company's going to do. Okay, what is our order entry going to be? What is my estimated install going to be? It really helps me out, and it helps you out because it keeps all of your quotes organized in one area. So now I'm just going to show you a little bit of information on accounts. So if I go into my accounts, now for this one that I told you, once we hit send quote, it would transfer it to an account. I'm going to click on the account, and I will show you that the account status is prospect. So what that means is they have not purchased from us yet, but that I've given them a quote. So they definitely have a quote in the system. So the rules for prospects, again, remember why we use Zoho in the first place. We do not have any territories. We're all a relationship-based company. So all the information has to be updated as much as possible in here because this shows whose account is whose. So if account status is prospect, that means you have to stay in touch with that prospect within 6 months. If you haven't contacted them, it's been 9 months, you've had no contact with them, and another salesperson gets a lead from that prospect, there's a chance you could lose it. So you want to make sure that you put in information that you've been talking to them at least every 6 months when they're a prospect. So again, the same situation as with the suspect. See how when it was a suspect, it still had my notes in here, and those notes convert over. So if I'm wanting to add a new note about them, I have my open project with them, I have my contact information. Here's still my open, information that I've done. So you never want to delete any of these. You see how I could delete them? You want to, all of your open activities, you just want to close those activities. So if I click that, I've already made this call, I want to click on here, and I want to mark it complete. Mark this call as complete. So I'll just check mark that, save it. And then it will show that that's no longer in my open activities, it's in my closed activities. And again, if I had any emails that I sent, they would also show up here as well. So you will know what an account is if it's a prospect or a client by the account status. So it'll say prospect or it'll say client. Once we've actually won this job, so you go back into your projects, the customer signed off on it, they've placed the order entry will mark that project closed. So I'm going to go in here and try to find the project. Sometimes it's hard because, again, I have way too many projects in there that I'm just going to look for the project this way. So I have the projects here. So I'm going to go back into the project. I'm going to pretend I'm the order entry person at this point, and they're going to edit this. Oh, I actually went into the wrong one.
Are you looking for job base?
Yeah.
It's up.
Oh, right here. Okay, then I'm going to edit. And so the order entry people, once they've turned it to order, are going to mark it closed won. If at some point we lose it, then I would want you to come in here and write closed, lost to competition. If we lost it just because they've decided to abandon the project, because sometimes we didn't lose it, they just didn't decide to ever buy it, then you want to hit closed abandon, because you really want to keep your projects all up to date. So in this scenario, we're going to say it was closed won, and then save. So now when I go back into that account, okay, so now I go into the account, and now that you will see that the account status changed to client. So clients have to be kept in touch with within 12 months. So with every 12 months, you have to stay in contact with them. If you have the email address in there, which that's required anyway, then they will be receiving campaigns. So as you go along, I can't see it in here right now, but anyway, they will be receiving campaigns. So if the information is in there for campaigns, for the first 12 months, that's acceptable. And then that's considered you staying in contact with them. But in the second 12 months, campaigns do not count. So you have to have actually physically emailed them, talked to them, took them out to lunch, something like that, to count, to keep them as your customer. And the reason why we do this, I know it sounds harsh, but if you're not staying in contact with them, then we could be missing out. Somebody else, another vendor could be staying in contact with them, and then we're basically screwed because we lost out on the opportunity because we let another customer get in, another vendor get in there, I'm sorry. So that's pretty much it that you're responsible for. You're responsible for writing all your notes in there, your appointments, your calls, whether they're suspects, prospects, or clients. You're responsible for keeping up on all of your projects and your open quotes. And then there will be separate training on the Zoho app, because you can do a lot of this stuff that I was doing on the screen right from your phone.